We'll call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals. Would you please stand for the pledge? Joe, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yesterday was the recognition of 9/11, and we'll have a moment of silence in that recognition that occurred and those people that were impacted. Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Gary Farley, Veronica Buchanan, Jerry Sartain,
Here.
Joe Michotto,
Here.
Bill Harper, Zane Cantrell.
Present.
We have a quorum.
You have the minutes of the last meeting that it was mailed out. Do you have any changes or corrections to the minutes?
Move be approved, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion that be approved.
I'll second it.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. They are approved. Have a couple of people that we'd like to recognize. Renee Curtis is up for appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and we appreciate her being here and feel certain that the County Commission would approve that. Bill Harper, who is not here, has been approved previously, so we expect him at our next meeting. And I'd also like to recognize Michael Rather, who is here. Michael is a past board member and member of the County Commission now, and he's also on the steering committee. Michael, it's good to have you with us again. Thank you. Now, to business. The first item we have is a request by Kevin Buck, who is requesting a temporary special exemption approval for a seasonal attraction, and this is in a commercial general zoning district, new kind of zoning. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application BZA 2018-28, filed by Kevin Buck, involves the property located at 3815 John Bragg Highway and 305 Double Springs Road. And Mr. Buck is seeking temporary special exception approval for a seasonal attraction on a property located in the RM medium density residential zone and the commercial general zoning district. And we have seen this application for several years. Mr. Buck has operated the Haunted Woods on these two sites since 2010. For several years, the 305 Double Springs Road address was under the zoning district of AR, which did not require special exception approval. However, he came before you each year for the parking and access site that is zoned residential medium. Since last year, the 305 Double Springs Road property was rezoned to commercial general. Therefore, we are seeking temporary special exception approval for both of these properties. Like I said, Mr. Buck has operated the Haunted Woods from the site since 2010. We've never had any complaints regarding the operation of this temporary use. Most of the application details are the same. 30 to 35 individuals will work the event. They will have signage, and the operation or the event will take place beginning the end of September through the end of October, which is Halloween. And we find that it meets the criteria for special exception. And these are just some different photos of the surrounding site. This is the site where all of the parking will take place and access to the property. There will not be access off the Double Springs Road. And this is the attraction site that contains the woods that will be haunted. And that concludes our presentation.
Any questions of our staff? Do we have anyone here representing this request? If you'll come around, please. This is a seasonal attraction, and for mostly in October, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And about how many people do you expect? Normally, what do you have?
Yeah, normally it's anywhere from 300 to 500 people a night. So,
Any questions? Thank you. May be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion on it?
Mr. Chairman, meeting the requirements and having a record of no complaints since 2010, I believe it was, I'd recommend approval.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Veronica Buchanan. Joe Machado.
Yes.
Jerry Sartain.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. It is approved. The next item we have is a request by James Knott, who is requesting special exemption for a major home business involving accounting. It's an accounting business.
Yes.
What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2018-29 involves the property at 2305 Almaville Road, and the application is filed by James Knott. And this is a request for special exception approval for the establishment of a major home-based business involving an accounting business upon a property located in the residential medium zoning district. And the site lies along Almaville Road. It's directly across from the town of Smyrna city limits. And you have residential on the southern portion of Almaville Road, and directly north you have industrial type uses. And Mr. Knott has operated a business, according to his application, from his home in Nashville, and so he's relocated here to this site and would like to establish the accounting business or office in this attached structure that measures 800 square feet. And at most, at any given time, he may have up to 2 non-resident employees on the site. The site does have ample parking to support the major home-based business. And the reason that he is coming before you is there will be the installation of a 5-square-foot sign attached to the structure, as well as the structure itself that the business will take place in exceeds 500 square feet. And so this is a photo of the property, and you can see the structure here and the parking area that it already exists on the site. And then you can see the surrounding area and the industrial developments across the street. So it's unlikely that this particular use will have a negative impact on the surrounding area. You do have a fire station in this area, as well as some other home-based businesses you've seen before. And we find that it meets the criteria for major home-based business, and that concludes our presentation.
Do we have anyone here representing this request?
I have a question for
You'll come
Daniel.
around, please.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Daniel.
Go ahead.
Okay. When it talks about parking, and I've always asked this question, when the garage faces the front, how does it qualify for here? Because it says it's not supposed to be past the front of the house. Go to your specific standards.
I'm sorry, can you
Yeah,
say
I'm
that
trying
a
to
little
I'm trying
louder?
to make it a little clearer for you.
Okay,
When you have a house like this, that the parking is in the front,
yes.
so how do you meet the criteria that you can't park outside the front line of the dwelling unit, like it says here.
Well, he's proposing to use existing parking, and which criteria are you referring to?
On page 3 of 4.
Are you saying parking and storage of 2 business vehicles on the premises?
Look on B. You answered it as it says an applicant indicated that a truck would be stored on the property, but that's not my question.
The vehicles, they would be employee vehicles, although this parking area served a residential use there before. And so it's not really going to change the exterior look of, you're not going to have like business trucks with the logos on it. You're going to have
I understand the concept here. I just don't know how to deal with it now or in the future, or how we've done with it in the past.
Well, and it is my interpretation that this vehicle shall not be stored in a front yard would be vehicles that you would associate with a business that would be like a plumber's box truck, or a vehicle that wouldn't necessarily be used for personal use, but completely dedicated to a business type use. So,
Thank you.
even though you might find some personal vehicles that have some signage on it, we do allow that, and we allow them to count that as a personal vehicle. So,
Thank you.
That answer your question, Jerry?
no, well,
You're still not satisfied?
Well, I'm not seeing a vehicle that is parked there. That criteria, vehicles shall not be stored. Stored, to me, would imply a long-term situation where it's not constantly changing. But we can look at that criteria, because I can understand why it's confusing.
I'm sorry we've delayed you. If you'll give us your name, please.
James Knott.
Okay, and this would be your businesses?
Yes, sir.
Currently, where is your business located?
Antioch, Tennessee, sir. It's on Mountain View Road.
So you want to move it to your home? This is where you live?
Correct.
Okay, and how many employees will you have?
2, sir.
Okay, and parking, you'll have plenty of room for
Oh,
parking?
yeah, there's room for 10, 12 cars to park. This house, when it was first built, was the model home for the big subdivision that's back behind it. And the garage originally was a 2-story office building that, I can't remember the name of the real estate company, but they had offices. It's wired. Everything's already set up for an office in there.
Are there certain times of the year that you'll have more business there, clients?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right now, I doubt if I have 1 or 2 people come by a day. But during tax season, I might have 4 or 5 people a day come by.
Okay.
But they come in, they drop off their stuff, they say hi, and they go out and leave. I've been running a home-based, or from my home for the last, 15 years in Antioch, but I just would prefer to live here in Smyrna now.
Any questions from the board? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion on it?
I move to approve.
Have a motion to be approved. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Have a second. Call the roll, please.
Veronica Buchanan,
Yes.
Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. It is approved. The next item we have is a request by Corey Robinson, who is requesting a special exemption for a major home business, and this would be a sawmill. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2018-30 involves the property at 8518 Newtown Road, and it's a request for special exception approval for the establishment of a major home-based business involving a sawmill upon the property located in the RL Low-Density Residential Zoning District. The property is a 10.83-acre parcel, and the applicant would like to establish a small electric sawmill operation in a detached 900 square foot, approximately 900 square foot structure that's located on this 10-acre property. And the applicant indicates that it's, at this time, it's a part-time hobby business. There is the possibility that additional employees may be added in the future, but at this time, business hours that are being proposed will be Monday through Saturday by appointment only. And we have received an informational call regarding this request, but no one has indicated any opposition. And again, this is one of those situations where the square footage of the structure that the business is going to be operated in exceeds the 500 square feet, automatically pushing it into the major home-based business category. And this is just the zoning map showing the entire area as a low-density zoning district. And that concludes our presentation.
Okay, Mr. Robinson, are you here? Would you come around, please? Mr. Robinson, you are Corey Robinson?
Yes, sir.
Correct, okay. As I understand your sawmill operation, that this is a small portable
So
electric?
it's actually not portable. It's electric. It's stationary.
And it's not like the big sawmills that,
No, sir.
okay?
No.
And you're limited on the type of logs that you can
Right.
cut to begin with. You know, with some of those, I know the portable, they go to wherever someone is cutting their lumber. Is it?
It's similar to that same style. I work a full-time job, so me going to somebody installing doesn't really work. I like woodworking, so I work for a builder developer, and instead of having them burn the trees, we decided that we would start saving them. So when we go through and we develop a neighborhood, we actually save all the trees. So everything that I use is all urban salvage trees. I work closely with 2 other tree companies too, that if they have a nice tree that they can save, they'll bring it to my property. So we're saving trees rather than just burning them.
Is this all you do for a living? Is that
No, so I work for,
So this is
I'm a
kind of the-
superintendent, this is a hobby.
hobby or part-time?
Yeah, this is a part-time hobby. Yep. Yeah, I build houses, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Joe?
How big are the trucks that bring the logs in?
There is none, it's just me with a gooseneck. If it's a tree service, it's with a dump trailer, that's it.
Okay.
But no semis, it's not forestry
Now,
semis or anything like that, yeah.
does your mill make a real loud whining noise when you're cutting the?
No, so if you were to compare, say a 50 horsepower tractor, that's gas and diesel, that's what most mills are. Mine's 10 horsepower electric, so it's like starting an electric car.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What's the largest log you can put in it?
I can actually do 36 inches, so pretty large.
So what would be the typical length of what you would bring in?
8 to 10 foot. Yep.
Anything else? Thank you, appreciate
Thank you.
it. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Commissioner?
Kind of strange standing up here. Michael Rather, 1052 Allen Road. If you're wondering why I'm here, there are several districts between my district and Corey's. I've been to Corey's house several times, and I felt like I was going into a different time zone from where I live to get out to his house. But I did talk to Pettis Reed a couple times, or a couple days ago, to get his permission to even be here. He said he has heard no opposition at all from it. The main reason I wanted to come and speak for Corey is that I've known, well, as a board member of this board, sometimes we get applications that sound real good, but then we know that there's something different. or suspect that, and there's been times where we found that to be true. So Corey and I have been friends for a long time, many, many years. I consider him one of the finest people I know, and if Corey says he's going to do something, that's what he's going to do. When Corey first started talking about this quite some time ago, he actually called me to see what to do. That tells you the kind of person he is, because he wanted to do the right thing. And so I just want to let you know what kind of person you're dealing with. I don't know actually how he's going to have time to do it. The construction company he works for does 80 to 100 houses a year, and he's a superintendent, and he has a small child and a wife, and I don't know how he finds time for it or how his wife puts up with it, but anyway, that's the reason I'm here, and it's good to see you guys, and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else? We'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion on it?
I would like to make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to be approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Call roll, please.
Veronica Buchanan,
Yes.
Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes, it is approved. The next item we have is a request by Baker Donaldson on behalf of Verizon Wireless, and what do you have on that? This is a monopole communication tower, 190 feet in height, and what do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2018-31 as a request for special exception approval for the establishment of a 190-foot monopole communications tower to be established on the property located in the residential low-density zoning district. And this is the site itself. It's zone residential low densities, like I just said, and it's 24 acres. And the applicant has provided staff with the third-party review that's required for telecommunications towers, and we have incorporated their third-party consultants' review, their recommendations into our recommended conditions. And this is the site, the tower site on the property, and you can see that there is a floodplain shown on the survey, as well as I have a map that will show you the location of the actual tower in relation to the floodplain. We have received calls with concerns about the location of the tower on this particular site and the location on the property, and I did pass out some information that was provided by a property owner with concerns to you at the pre-meeting, so hopefully you've had a chance to look over that. And once they, if they were to get approved, they would have to go through site plan approval to demonstrate meeting all of our development standards for telecommunications towers. The tower is set greater than the height, the distance greater than the height of the tower, so it does meet the setback regulations for communications towers. And this is approximately the location of the actual tower, and the shaded blue that you see on the screen is the floodplain that's shown on this particular property. And this entire area is on residential low density. And we find that it meets the criteria for special exception approval, subject to the conditions that was included in the third-party consultant's review, and that's in your staff report.
Okay. We have, is that all you?
Yes.
Okay. In any cell tower that comes before the Board of Zoning Appeals, our staff has to review all applications and determine whether it meets requirements or not, and they have done that. We even go further as a Board of Zoning Appeals, and we have a third-party person to review all federal, state, and local requirements. Most of these folks are federal requirements, and the Board of Zoning Appeals, our position is to look and make sure that it does meet those requirements. And I'm going to ask Mr. Perry to come forward now. He is the third-party review of this application. I'm telling you this because there's not very little flexibility that this board legally would have in determining where or what or how it's to be placed. And that's what Mr. Perry's role is in this. If you'll go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Larry Perry. I live at 11464 Saga Lane in Knoxville, Tennessee. We call it God's country up there, but he wasn't born here. He just wish he was. You know, I keep telling people that. This application, we reviewed it for all the federal, state, and local regulations, including the latest ones from the FCC. I served on the Commission's advisory committee when we wrote the original rules, on the U.S. State Department's advisory committee when we wrote the rules as far as Telecommunications International. And so, with that background, we look at everything, both local, federal, and state, as far as the requirements are concerned. And, Mr. Chairman, this application meets all those requirements. Now, there's been some talk about it should be moved further back on the property, but in my opinion, that'd be a very tough thing to do because of the floodplain. I mean, it's up to the carrier. They can make that decision. And I did want to say before any other questions comes up that, ladies and gentlemen of the BZA and those of you in the County Commission, you're going to see a lot of applications in the next 2 years for more towers. They're not going to be big towers like this. This is 190 foot. As I mentioned to you last time I was here a few months ago, you're going to see more in the field of 35, 40 feet, like utility poles. You won't see that too much here in Murfreesboro and Rutherford County, except maybe around Middle Tennessee State. You will in Nashville, Knoxville, major cities. And that's going to be a major, major, major problem because the range of each one of those new sites is only 400 yards at the most. That's like lower football field long. So that's why you have to have so many of them. In Nashville, for example, you're going to have 200 of them per square mile in the city to make it work. And the reason of that is because the demand for data communications has increased incredibly in the last 3 or 4 years. Those of you who've got children, you know that your kids are always playing games or doing things with schoolwork on their iPads or on their cell phones, and that eats up space and eats up time, and as well as bandwidth, we call it. And so you're going to see a lot of that. There's demand there. And one of the things we look at, and I request of all the applicants, whether it's Verizon or T-Mobile or AT&T or whoever it is, I want to see what the coverage looks like in that area. And I'll also go out and measure it like I did here to make sure they're not lying to me. And I've never had one lie to me yet, but it keeps them honest. And there is very low signal level out there. And the other two, there's 2 towers at about 3 miles away that I mentioned in the report that they don't cover this area. There's not enough signal strength there to cover it to make sure that you have the wireless, the seamless, I'd rather say, infrastructure. Now, what's happening here from a federal standpoint, the cities in California have been pretty nasty to the carriers about these new small cells, the new things that you'll be seeing a little bit more of here. And as a result, the federal government is taking away a lot of the authority of the local planning commission like they already have in a lot of respects here. So looking downstream, depending on how things go, and this is not a threat by any stretch of the imagination, I couldn't care less, but I'm just telling you that the federal government has taken away a lot of the authority of the local planning commission, the local board of zoning appeals, and the local county commissions, as well as the local state offices, as far as what they can do and what they cannot do as far as towers or antenna support structures are concerned. So keep that in the back of your mind as you listen to some of these things. I'll be glad to answer any questions any of you may have along those lines. Yes, sir.
I guess the biggest thing, Mr. Perry, I see here is the demand. It's what they call supply and demand. So in other words, if we quit using our cell phones, we wouldn't need these towers.
That's right.
I just wanted everybody to understand that that's watching and it's in the audience because, you know, it's like you said, we're going to see a lot of it over the next 10, 15, 20 years.
And the interesting thing about your comment there was, and for those of you here in the audience not familiar with this, if the carriers in Rutherford County don't use the tower for 6 months to a year, they have to remove the tower. So if something new comes along, such as it can't happen, but suppose you have some satellite communication or something that comes along that replaces cellular or replaces what we call PCS carriers, the local operators have to remove all the towers that they're not using. If they haven't been used in 6 months to 8 months, then they have to be removed. And that's pretty much true all across the state of Tennessee. But your county planning commission here, in their wisdom some time ago when they put the rules together, put that in there. So if they don't use it, they lose it.
Everybody and their brother and their kids all have cell phones, and in order to meet that capacity, they're building these cell towers. And without, if we take those cell phones and put them somewhere else, we wouldn't be building them.
That's
because
correct.
It's very expensive to build that and have upkeeping to them. Veronica?
I think this is great information. Danielle, is there any way that, you know, these cell tower people can have like community meetings with wherever they're going in at? Because this is good information that needs to be shared. I see that we have community meetings for everything else. I was just wondering, do we have community meetings for cell towers?
Are you suggesting that maybe the process, the special conditions for telecommunications might require the prerequisite before the application's made?
I'm
like
just
a community
suggesting
meeting,
some
like the
way
plan-
getting it out to wherever it's going. Because again, we're sitting here looking at this and we're in awe. It would be great for whatever community this cell tower is going in, that you can get the information out to the people, you know, that has the questions. I'm just curious because we require it
without requiring them to hold like a community meeting, for instance, like the plan unit developments, that they get together with the neighborhood before an application's even made.
I'm just curious, is there any way, if you see that, if you're getting a lot of calls, maybe, you know, just set up something to where they can come and talk to them? That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Let me give you an example of what you're asking about across the state of Tennessee. And I do work in 56 counties all over the southeast here. Typically what happens when they put the signs up, when the Planning Commission places the sign that there's going to be a BZA hearing or whatever the hearing is on a antenna support structure tower, if we call it that way, if there's opposition like Danielle and Doug get in their office, then typically they will go to the carrier and say, look, you need to do something about this because there's a lot of opposition to it. And we suggest that you have a meeting in the community and talk to the people and explain what the situation is. And that happens a lot all across the state. Rather than being a requirement, it's generally a gentleman's agreement between the Planning Commission and the carriers. And most all your carriers, I don't know of any carrier, maybe one, but most of them are pretty nice about that, and they'll have the meetings and they'll answer 99% of the questions. That generally solves a lot of the problems, like the confusion that people have here and on the situation. But that's a good idea. I like that idea. But I think it ought to be more of a relationship rather than a requirement. If you had a requirement, it makes it a little bit sticky.
Yeah, I'm not trying to. I'm just saying if you talk things out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See. The problem that the Planning Commission has, and you as the Board of Zoning Appeals and the County Commission, is you've got a stop clock from the time that they make the application until the time it's considered. And if you have to have a meeting or something in between that puts you in an awkward position, because if you don't act on it within that stop clock required by the federal government, then you lose, they win. So it's just one of those kind of things you have to think about. So. Yeah, I do too. I agree with you. I agree.
Well, as a matter of fact, the last cell tower, they at Garrison Cove, they did have a meeting with the cell tower people and answered a lot of those questions, which had no effect on what we did here, but at least the people understood what was going on. So that has occurred in the past. Do we have someone representing this? Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You've got your recommendations here. There's 4 of them. Could you go over those for us?
Yeah, let me look at them. The recommendations that I made, in addition to what your staff said, was number 1, submit a letter from the applicant stating that in the event of non-use of a tower for 180 days, that they'll remove the tower at their expense. Number 2, submit a letter stating that the site will be completed within 1 year from the date of grant. Now, let me explain that one to you. We had a situation down in Chattanooga where an applicant made an application, got a grant, and for 2 years didn't build the tower. Then but the city grew out, and all of a sudden you had houses all around it, and all of a sudden they couldn't put the tower up. I mean, it was in the country at one time, then it became a city, and you got into a big fight down there. So that's why I say make the carriers require them to build this thing within a year after you grant the permit. Number 3, this is just a personal thing I like. They have 3M. I'm not promoting 3M by any stretch of the imagination, but they have come up with a wrap, like a saran wrap that goes around the antennas, and it almost makes it transparent. You can see the sky, you don't see the antenna. And I just recommended that to do that. That way, the people in the neighborhoods won't see the antennas. They'll see the tower, but not the antenna. The applicant should submit a letter confirmation that space on the tower be made available to other carriers under the same terms and conditions that other tower users in the area. You've got one carrier, and I'm not going to mention the name, but what they'll do, they'll come in and make an application for you to put up a tower or a support structure for them. And then if AT&T or one of the other carriers ask them, can we get on your tower so we don't have to build another one, they'll say, yeah, but it's going to cost you $300,000 plus $40,000 a month to keep them away from it. And so that's why we put that in there, so that they come out and put screws to everybody. That messes everybody up, the county, the community, as well as all the carriers.
Are these recommendations pretty typical?
Yes, they are most of the time, yeah. It depends on the county. Some counties already got them built into their requirements, and some don't. And the ones that don't, I always put them in there because I've been burned too many times as a result of it. So I want to make sure that you don't get burned and get in the process.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions while Mr. Perry's up here? Thanks. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Joey Hargis. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Baker Donaldson, representing Verizon Wireless. I would like to, if I could, pass out some documents for the members and put one in the file, but I believe I've got 4 folks here today. Mr. Chairman, as Mr. Perry spoke, our request before you fully complies with all federal, state, and your local regulations as well. I would like to make the offer because I do have opposition here. Most of the times I've come before you, generally I do not. I'll make an offer, if you're willing, to defer this case one meeting. I don't know when your next meeting.
I think it's definitely the second Wednesday, and I want to say it might be October 10th. I'm not quite sure. Let me look at my...
But I think in Verizon, we want to be good neighbors with the folks and where we're putting. So I do make that offer if you're willing to make a motion and pass that we defer one meeting to hold a neighborhood meeting. I'm happy to meet with you all folks that are here today. Many times I come before this board with towers. Generally, I don't have opposition, or I might have one person, but I do see, I think I'm counting 8 folks back there. So I would like to take the opportunity to meet with them if this board is...
Yes. Okay. So would you coordinate that neighborhood meeting?
Certainly,
Would you? Don't know what the closest community assembly is at this area, but we could help you.
I'll talk with the neighbors. Obviously, they know that area much greater than I do. Maybe we can work out a
Do
spot.
we have a number of neighbors here that have questions? Would you raise your hand if you have, would you all like to have a meeting with these folks before we make a determination? Shake your head. Okay. Would you all be willing to do that, Mr. Perry, and you guys be willing to do that? We could have it up here at our office, and we could set a time.
In the mezzanine,
And then
we could if that's
We could bring
convenient
this
for
back
everyone.
next month. These folks need answers to their questions. These are all federal guidelines, and that's what you need to hear, and you need to hear them from them. There's not a whole lot that we can do other than your meeting with the folks who have the proposal, and if they will change their proposal in any way that would be helpful to the neighbors, that would be what you would be after. But if you're after not wanting this to be there, I think you're running into some problems. So I think you're going to have to be logical about your requests. Do I have a motion on this that it be delayed till next month?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we defer it until next month.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. And the reason for that is to arrange a meeting with those folks who have questions, who'd like to talk to them and answer their questions. And you all have indicated you'd like to do that. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Well, if they will appear next month, the public hearing would be held next month if they take a vote on this motion to defer.
I would like to get some clarification concerning our situation. So when we do meet with them, I'll have a better idea from you guys.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion. and a
Are we going to have the public hearing today, or are we going to put it off till next month?
We're not going to have that today.
Okay?
Because we'll see how this goes, but we'll have a public hearing before we vote on it,
Okay.
before we make any decision on it. Okay? So we've got a motion for delay until next month to give them a time to meet and answer any questions that they have. We have a second to that. Are there any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Veronica Buchanan,
Yes.
Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. Motion to delay is approved, and we'll allow you time to set up a time and a date that's convenient to all of you, so you can meet with these two folks and our staff. This meeting can be held in one of our rooms over on the main building where the Planning Commission is located. Is that correct? Is that all right?
The mezzanine would be made available
Okay.
if necessary.
And if you will see these folks before you leave and kind of get an idea of when and where, what time would be convenient for you guys to meet. Any other items that need to become before the BZA?
No, sir?
We are adjourned. Thank you.